There is a fascinating story coming out of Ohio that I have to be honest, I love on so many counts. Basically, some of these states came through with policies that basically try to force people back to work. Basically, their plan was, well, if we get rid of people's unemployment insurance, we can knuckle them back into the job. Now, this is in spite of people being concerned about dying from COVID 19. The majority of the public, I think around 70%, will prefer that the economy stays closed. They believe that the COVID 19 issue is a priority over them trying to get immediately back to work. Now, I would argue that those people are right. Their life and limb is infinitely more important than basically whatever job they were going to be doing. Now, the catch here is those companies and the owners of those companies, especially the political leaders that attend to the needs of that owner class and that 1% class, well, they don't believe that. Basically, those owners are not going to be the ones at the front of those shops. They're not going to be the ones that put themselves in harm's way. No, they're just going to be the ones that is expropriating the wealth from those workers, putting themselves on the front line. Ohio put through a plan that basically encouraged employers to report employees that were terrified or scared or concerned about coming into work because they didn't want to die from a virus. Consider for the moment that many of the people who are working on those front lines are basically people of color, which have been disproportionately dying from this particular virus from issues of comorbidity. Co- uh, yeah, co- what is it? Is it comorbidities? I think it's called comorbidities. But basically, additional illnesses, things like hypertension, diabetes, those type of things, make it that much worse regarding the illness, and those people have a higher propensity of death. And so you have this situation where the state, working in the interest of its owner class, comorbidities, working in the interest of its owner class, is basically trying to push people back to work using their own vulnerabilities and the fact that they don't have their needs met in order to force them into a difficult, if not hazardous, situation. Now, this is abysmal, right? I mean, basically, your society, for whatever reason, can spend $1 trillion on nuclear weapons. It can give trillions to the top 1% while giving pennies to the rest of us. I would make the point to you that the reason why they're giving pennies to the rest of us is because, again, they're trying to force people back into their jobs. And if they insured for the general welfare for several months, those people wouldn't necessarily be forced back into their jobs. That's the key point. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, they're working in the interest of the owner class and they're pushing these people back to work. Well, I keep making the point that we need to stand in solidarity with one another because it becomes very clear that our government does not give a shit about us. They make that point clear over and over again in the decisions that they make that adversely affect us while attending to the needs of the people who are putting money in their pockets. You either have dollars or pitchforks. And if you don't have pitchforks, then the only thing that's moving the political system is dollars. Now, the catch becomes if we're working in tandem with one another, working in tandem means various skills will be brought to bear against a political system that is not working in our interests. At some point, the political system might have been rational from the standpoint of the public will and the public good, but this is not where we are. In Ohio, a hacker took it upon himself in order to push back against the government's efforts to force people back to work. And that hacker that took it upon himself single-handedly brought down Ohio's system to force people back to work. So much so that Ohio has basically put through a policy of contemplating what they're going to do in regarding this particular policy. This hacker, and the reason why I'm doing this story, deserves a certain degree of attention for doing God's work. He did God's work. Welcome to the soapbox. Right here. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. I would imagine Ohio didn't necessarily like what this hacker did, but at this point, I don't give a shit what Ohio thinks. Because basically, Ohio was going to fuck over other human beings, just like you, just like me, that had to drag their ass out into a situation that could have put their lives in danger. Those people might have kids, those people might have grandparents that they have to attend to, and yet you expect those people to put their lives at risk just for you to expropriate profit. Here's the catch. those human beings are not just individuals in and of themselves. They have lives that tangle or entangle themselves with other people's lives. Meaning, if you're trying to force those people back to work, you're not just harming that individual, you're also harming the other individuals that person is connected to. Our lives are not individual things. Those things are intertwined with other people's lives. We have people who we are in this reality with arm in arm together. And if you are taking a position from the standpoint of state in order to do something just for the interest of your donors that is going to disadvantage those people, then it makes all the sense in the world that those people or people working on behalf of those people strike back in defense. That is God's work. I don't give a shit what the law thinks. What I care about is how it's adversely affecting those people. You must understand, the law is just whatever whoever's in power makes. It's not a moral choice. It's not a right choice from the standpoint of rationality of human beings. It's just the choice that those people in power make. There's a difference between the law versus what is moral. If you're looking at slavery, slavery was grossly immoral, but it was totally within the context of the law. I'm making the point that whatever Ohio's law is, they were taking a policy that was adversely affecting their population. And this hacker single-handedly disabled the website. And that in and of itself was enough for them to rethink their particular strategy. So this is Vice magazine. So right here, the state of Ohio won't deny unemployment benefits to people who refuse to work during the COVID-19 pandemic after people targeted the website it was using to track these workers, according to officials at the State Department of Job and Family Services. The department previously set up a fraud website encouraging employers to report those who refuse to go back to the job, angering workers and labor right advocates. State officials say they are now reconsidering the policy after Motherboard reported that the hacker created a script to flood the COVID-19 fraud website with junk data, with the goal of making it impossible to process claims. The plan that they were using in order to record this information was basically a website. So the hacker basically said, fine, I'll attack the website. And I will fill that website with junk data, so much junk data that your ability to process claims basically goes to nil. That's what he did. Now, they updated the website in order to block that script, but there's another hacker that basically said, if you put that website up again, I'm going to release another script to do the exact same thing. This is collective action. You must understand, whether or not, when Donald Trump decided to say, you know what, I'm not going to pay airline workers because it's an emergency, I need to pay for the wall. When he did that, and he basically allowed the government to shut down where those people weren't getting paid, those TSA workers should have went on strike immediately. In their heads, unfortunately, they had this idea that we must do this job. You must do this job for who? The people who are supposed to represent your interests and ensure that you got paid. He just shut the fucking government down just to get a wall up that was entirely unnecessary as a political stunt. His political stunt mattered more than thousands of human beings being able to eat, feed themselves, pay their rent, pay their expenses, and he did this for months. The point I'm making here is, instead of having in your head, I have to do this because it's right, what should have been in your head is, I need to strike because they are not attending to my needs. If that government doesn't give a shit about you, why are you doing that particular job for that government? That needs to be understood in a flesh-to-bone way, not just by airline workers, but also by Amazon workers, where you have Bezos talking about a trillionaire, and these guys are breaking their backs for $15 an hour. I guess I'm making the very basic point that we need to start looking at ourselves in a different way. We are not in a world where we have a government or a corporate structure that gives a shit about us. We are a means to an end for them to make profit. That is all. If that means you need to go back to that job and die, potentially on behalf of that company to reap the benefits of that profit while they are boarded up in their mansions, yes, they would be perfectly okay with you doing that. Now, the issue becomes whether employees understand that. And if employees can understand that in flesh to bone, maybe they would start taking a certain point of view of, we have worth, we have value. This guy doesn't exist without my labor in this company and without me buying stuff at their stores. Yeah, I deserve more. I deserve more. And being willing to walk. I understand it's risky, but by the same token, these guys were able to take action in order to defend those employers in Ohio. The only thing he did was take down their website. I'm making the point that small acts can have outsized influence. And in this particular case, this hacker, I would argue, is doing God's work. We need to work collectively. And my argument is stand under the idea of policy. In this very specific case, this hacker used his talent in order to thin large numbers of people in Ohio. Another hacker is going to pick up the task of doing the same thing. During COVID-19, I think a few things should be very clear to us. A, they don't care about you. B, the corporate system doesn't care about you. C, unless we start looking at ourselves as a class, and from the standpoint of looking at ourselves as a class, start working in collective interests. I don't care if you hate me. Don't care. As long as you don't have any power over me, I don't give a shit about it. What I would hope, however, is that you don't fuck me at the ballot box, or you don't fuck me in the political position of hurting yourself in order to not let somebody else who's also in your class in a similar position get ahead. Either we're united or they continue to fuck us over in this way. This guy in Ohio is doing God's work. Like, share, and subscribe.